All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jessie Littlejohn. I am the social media producer for Presbyterian Outlook, and we are happy to be back once again for another Facebook Live conversation. Today, Amy Pagliarella, who is our book review editor for Presbyterian Outlook, is back. You might recall that we did a book review session, Facebook conversation back in May for previewing our summer books, and I wanted to do it again for our winter books. Well, they aren't technically winter books, but for our winter book issue. And I know that Amy has a whole slew of books that she wants to talk about that came up in our December issue and Page Turners, and that will be coming up in our January issue as well. So if you are somebody who is looking for a Christmas gift, which is creeping up way faster than any of us are ready for, or if you are on the hunt for the perfect gift yourself, then make sure you have a pen and pencil or that you are copying down links so that you have notes to take and give to your loved ones. So Amy, when you are ready, jump into it and tell us what you are excited about in this issue.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jessie, and thanks to everyone who joins us. So I am a believer that books are sort of like the grown-ups' toys for Christmas gift giving. I love on Christmas morning when the presents are open to be able to sit down and dive into a book that my family has thoughtfully chosen for me. And so we really have a lot of choices depending on what kind of a reader you are. And so I want to first highlight our winter books issue. Mine just arrived in the mail yesterday, so hopefully others have received it as well. And it really is just sort of the gamut of a lot of good nonfiction this year, as well as some fiction, some choices for children, a lot of things there. So I'm just going to highlight one of the books there, and it is Amy Frykholm's new work of fiction called High Hawk. This book is gorgeous. And I highlight it because it's not from a big press. It's not the kind of thing you're going to see at the airport bookseller before you get on a plane, but it is just a page turner. It's a mystery. So it's in that respect, a pretty easy read, but it's also a challenging read because she presents us with Father Joe, this very avuncular priest. You really like him from the beginning, but you also come to realize that he is a very well-intentioned and deeply, deeply flawed human, right? Aren't we all? And so it really brings us into an unfamiliar time and place. He works on kind of on the edges of a Native American reservation. It brings us into the lives of the residents there. It brings us into the world of the Catholic Church. And it kind of challenges us to, as he faces, how complicit has he been in some really terrible things that have happened in that world. Really, really good read. Highly recommended. I also want to touch on, Jessie, you remember when we spoke last, we talked a lot about James,
yes.
Percival Everett's book. I just want to lift it up one more time because I know I had some friends last year when I told them how much I loved it. They said, you know, not really my thing. I'm just not into that kind of reading. Well, since it has won the National Book Award, I feel like James is on everybody's nightstands. And in fact, the same friend who said, no, thanks, I don't want to borrow your copy, I noticed it on her coffee table when I was there last week. So this is a book, we talked about it. If you had written it off the first time, give it another chance. It is deep. It is it's an easy read because it's so good. It's a great story, which makes it easy to read, but it's a challenging read because it forces us to question our own assumptions and to relook at history, to relook at the way stories have been told. I mean, to me, it's the total package for the kind of book that you're going to want to read this time of year or any time of year. I want to then shift gears and talk a little bit about children's books. I think people love to buy children's books, right? I mean, we get nostalgic. We want to give them as gifts to the kiddos in our lives, or even people who don't have children in their lives. They want to buy them for their church library because there's so much good stuff out there. And you had the chance to review a book that's in our winter books edition. So you want to say a few words about that one?
Sure. Yeah, Amy invited me to do a brief review, which was my first little foray into writing for the Outlook. And I reviewed a book called Home is Right Where You Are, inspired by Psalm 23 by Ruth Trout Simons and her son, Tommy Nelson, who is 3 years old. And it's just this beautiful take and sort of reiteration or re-examination and sort of inspired work, and almost like a long poem inspired by Psalm 23. And it really sort of hits on what, as a parent, you want for your child, which is to be protected, to be loved, for them to know and to be known by God. And if you're going through it, you might find yourself getting a little bit choked up. I know I did when I was reading it to my 2 kids. And I think even if you don't have somebody who can really absorb all of what it is that she's saying, the illustrations that she did, and she illustrated the book herself, just gorgeous. It's some of the best illustration that I've ever seen. I remember when I was in elementary school, there was always an award given out for best illustrations called the Caldecott Award.
Yes.
And my first thought was, oh, this would have been a Caldecott winner for sure.
I love it.
So if you are looking for a book and you just want something to read as you go to bed, or if you're just having one of those tender moments, Home is Right Where You Are, which is inspired by Psalm 23 by Ruth Trout Simons, is the way to go for sure.
I love that, Jessie. Thank you. And as you were speaking, it reminded me, I mean, I don't have little ones anymore. So whenever we're doing children's books, I always try to recruit somebody to read it with their children, and let us know, is it really a book that speaks to kids, or is it more something that we would like to read with our kids, but it kind of misses the mark. So it's great when you have one of these books that speaks to the kids and the grown-ups, that we can enjoy together. And I'll tell you, I work with youth in my church as well. And last year we spent a day on Psalm 23, and I pulled out children's books like this one to talk with the youth. And then I gave them a chance to kind of storyboard Psalm 23 with their own illustrations. And it was beautiful. Yeah. So kids' books are not just for kids. Yeah. So thank you for reminding us of that.
Absolutely.
We have one other children's book that I want to emphasize, and this is the Book of Belonging. We're going to see a great review of this from our friend Joe Wiersma. They reviewed it for the January issue, upcoming next month here at the Outlook. And what I love about this book, it's really a Bible story book, and there are so many Bible story books out there. So why would you add one more to your bookshelf? Well, I think the reason is it's in the title, the Book of Belonging. And so she comes at it with a very particular slant, which is, what do these Bible stories tell us about God and tell us about God's relationship with us? And how is that something that can offer children just comfort, reassurance, and belonging? And I think that's what we all need. But I think it's going to be particularly important with this next generation of children. You know, I know right now at my church, I work with older adults a lot. And with a lot of them, we're talking about belonging. How is the church a place of belonging? How is being in God's family a place of belonging? Do we really believe that deep down in our hearts? Mm-hmm. Or is it something that we were told that we haven't really bought into? And that can be such an important part of the connection people have with God, the church, and one another. So really want to lift that one up.
Awesome.
I want to shift gears a little here, Jessie, and talk about devotional reading. And I talk about that because this is the time of year where I personally am always looking for, is there a new devotional that I want to use for 2025? And if so, that's the kind of thing I would want to give as a gift, or I would want to hint to my loved ones that this is what I would like for Christmas. So the devotional that I have fallen in love with recently is called Every Day for Everyone. It's co-written by N.T. Wright and John Goldingay, so a New Testament scholar, Hebrew Bible scholar, and it's gorgeous. I don't actually have it in front of me because it was so good. I have already lent it to a friend, told him he could borrow it until January 1st, and then I need it back because it's mine. But I do have this beautiful copy of N.T. Wright's New Testament translation. And what what they do is he uses, you can use this translation alongside the passages that are chosen for each day. But what the authors do is they give us 365 one-page devotionals, each one with a brief sort of description of a scriptural passage, starting at the beginning, going all the way through the Bible, and really relating it to daily life in a way that's lighthearted, that's humorous, but also makes you think. And so I felt like when I read one of those, I feel like I'm sitting down with a friend who happens to be a world-class scholar and just enjoying the wisdom that they have to offer. And so for somebody who wants to read a little bit of scripture each day and reflect on it, beautiful, beautiful choice. That's not everybody's cup of tea when it comes to daily devotional reading. And so another book came across my desk. It's really kind of at the other end of the spectrum. This one is The Wisdom of Mr. Rogers, everybody's favorite Presbyterian minister, Fred Rogers. And it's called This Beautiful Day. And what I love about this is it's so simple. I don't know if you can see this very well. If our listeners, there we go. I mean, very simple. A daily devotional might just be one line, or it might be a poem or a half page, but a lot of them kind of read a little bit like one of those 365-day tear-off calendars. Really simple little snippets of wisdom, but really beautiful, go straight to the heart bits of wisdom. This is one I might send off to college with my son next year when he goes. It's one I would feel comfortable giving to a friend who's not religious, but is open to spiritual wisdom. I mean, it's really one of those that you could give to just about anybody, and they are going to find little bits of joy, wisdom, and inspiration throughout the year. That's so awesome. Great choice.
Awesome.
I've just a couple of others, and these are some of the end of year releases in the world of nonfiction, all books that I think would make great gifts. This one is called We Will Rest. It's by Tricia Hersey. This is a great gift book. Very simple, some beautiful illustrations that she did herself, some beautiful reflections. The kind of thing that you could pick up a little bit here and there and read and be inspired and encouraged and be challenged in some really good ways. It's really the follow-up to a more challenging book that she wrote, Rest is Resistance. And so we reviewed that book back in 2022 when it came out. And the subtitle of that one is A Manifesto. So that's like where she puts it all out there. She makes a case against the grind culture that so many of us find ourselves in. And she instead says, we need to have a more regenerative culture of rest, where we choose to not let our bodies and souls be used indiscriminately. You know, we choose to invest in the things that are important and also to protect ourselves, because the world will just take as much as we are able to give. And we need to be the ones to protect ourselves and each other and work toward a different kind of culture. So if somebody is unfamiliar with Tricia Hersey, maybe go back to the 2022 Rest is Resistance, and really get people thinking. That one's good for conversation, for a book group, really to kind of make you think. But if you're looking for just a sort of gift book version of that, We Will Rest is beautiful and inspirational. Highly recommend that one. And then I have two more that are kind of on a little bit of a similar, you can kind of tell where my mind is this time of year, I think. This one is The Service Berry. And people might know Robin Wall Kimmerer from Braiding Sweetgrass. Very popular book when that was released a few years ago. Beautiful book. And this is similar. But short and sweet, a very easy read, but so much wisdom, just chock full in this little tiny, beautiful book. But she really, again, she's a scientist and she's an indigenous. And so she really asks this question in all of her writing: what is it that we can learn from the natural world? And what she says here is she looks at the service berry. I had never heard of a service berry, but she looks at berries, and this one in particular, and this little kind of ecosystem of how these berries grow naturally. They grow in the wild, and they feed their community. They nurture the birds. They only come at certain times of year. She talks about like June berries, that nature has a plan, that things are cyclical, that things are only available at certain times of year. And she kind of challenges us to use this little example to say, why have we, instead of following this beautiful natural world and the way that God has laid things out, or the way that however you understand it, nature has laid things out, why do we try to bend it to suit us instead of following this this very natural rhythm? And it's not a preachy book. So when I say that, it's not something meant to make us feel guilty. It's something to make us think and question and wonder, is there a different way? And I love books like this because it doesn't, there are things that I think we all want to do to kind of change the world, to change the systems. But this is also one that if you're not ready to tackle all of that, or if that feels overwhelming, will make you think, well, what can I do? What can I do in my own life? Just in terms of living more sustainably throughout the seasons and understanding the way that nature is laid out to protect and sustain all of us.
Yeah. That's awesome.
The last book I want to highlight is called Love's Braided Dance. This one was released pretty recently, and people might be familiar with it. It's another one that is just gorgeous. And it's written by Norman Wirzba, who's a theology professor. He teaches at Duke Divinity School. And it's really a meditation on hope. And he has subtitled it Hope in a Time of Crisis, which makes it sound, again, like this might be really tough reading and not the kind of uplifting book you want to give people. But I disagree. I think he's really focused on hope. What does hope look like? What does hope look like in the face of climate crisis, in the face of technology and AI and all of these things that maybe come at us and make us feel a little powerless? And he really then kind of breaks hope down and says, well, this is what human flourishing looks like. It looks like active hope. It doesn't look like hope that is just something we have or we don't have. It looks like something that we actively work on every day. And how do we do that? Well, I mean, I think he says we do it through relationships. And so each chapter is a different meditation on what that looks like. And what I like about that format is, it's something you can bite off, as much as you can chew at any one time. There are really 8 different meditations. If you want to take one and read it and sit with it and take your time, you can pick it up a month later and read the second one. Or if, I found it a real page turner, I was kind of going through it. But now I'm finding myself wanting to go back and sit with each meditation separately, just to give you a little taste of how beautiful they are. He talks about one called Resonant Hope. And what he says is that, people were created for resonant relationships. If you think of resonance as like almost a musical term, the idea of when two things are close to each other, they zing, they kind of act off each other. And so we are made to be in proximity to one another. And when we do that, we can be moved, we can be transformed, we can be inspired. And so he gives us really something to reflect on, and then a little bit of guidance. So this is the kind of uplifting and inspiring book I would want to be reading at the end of the year, as I'm imagining, what kind of intentions do I want to set for 2025? This is a book that might really lead into that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so those are just a few of the many, many amazing books being published out there, Jessie.
A few, I think you listed at least 10. So as Amy was talking, I tried to put at least some of the ones that we had readily at hand that had been previously reviewed by Presbyterian Outlook in the comments. I'm also going to put our most recent sort of collection of like mini reviews in the comments as well, that you can go back. But always make sure that when you see a book review come up on our social media, on our website, please check it out. Amy does an incredible job bringing these book reviews together. People do submit to her. Amy, would you be willing to sort of remind people what the process is for how to submit book reviews and what you look for when you're doing that?
Yeah, of course. So I actively recruit a lot of reviewers, and I actively go out and search for the books that we want to cover. But I also get people who email me kind of out of the blue, and I'm always grateful for that. If you're thinking that you'd like to write a review for us, first email me. I would recommend, we try to focus on new books. So sometimes people are really excited about a book from a year ago, and that's unfortunately just not something we're going to be able to cover. Right now, for example, here in December, I'm looking at books being published March, April, May. That's really where we are. So if you see something that just came out and you've read it and you want to review it, let me know. If you see a book that is going to be coming up in the near future and you're excited about, let me know. If we decide to cover it, the publishers are very generous with us. They give us free copies of the book before they're available to the public. And so we can get that book in your hands ahead of time, and you'll be the envy of all your friends because you're reading this book that nobody else has access to yet. And then I will work with you on a review. So we try to write 600-word reviews. And I actively edit and kind of go back and forth until we're comfortable. If you feel like you'd like to write a review, but you don't have a book in mind, let me know. And I'll come back to you with, hey, here are 4 or 5 books that might interest you. Let me know what your favorites are, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. And don't be intimidated. Amy doesn't come to you with a red pen or anything. You're not going to have high school flashbacks. It's a very generative and gracious process. So don't be intimidated. If you are a book lover, this might be exactly what you are looking to do.
I think the process is fun. I think sometimes when we do go back and forth quite a bit sometimes. And at the end, I think I and the reviewer are usually able to say, like, this was great. I think everybody has a wonderful voice. And I feel like my job is to help to pull that out of people in the best possible way.
Absolutely. Make sure when you're looking at the books that we've offered in the comments, and as well as every book review that we do on Presbyterian Outlook has a link to the book that you can purchase directly. Presbyterian Outlook has partnered with bookshop.org, which is an independent online bookshop. So if you don't want to support one of those big box chains, you know which one I'm talking about. Which is, I know it's easy, but if you want to support an independent company and also support the Presbyterian Outlook, we definitely encourage you to shop through bookshop.org and see the generative fruits that they have purchased, and that they support authors and writers and publishers directly, which is great. I have one final question. I didn't give it to you in advance like I said I was going to, so I'm putting you on the spot. But I love your perspective, Amy. I love how much care you take and you put into the work that you do for the Outlook and for the work that you do in both this ministry as a editor for the Outlook, but also in your personal life. For those of you who may not know, Amy is a pastor. She was based out of Chicago. And just like many clergy, many church leaders at this time, I think it can be difficult. I may be speaking for myself, but I think I speak for a lot of pastors and church leaders. It can be difficult as we approach seasons or in the midst of seasons like Advent and Christmas and Epiphany, really any liturgical season, to sort of preach from a new perspective, to write from a new perspective, to find the untold message. And so I'm wondering for you in your personal ministry, and as you've gone through these books for the Outlook, if there are any writers or any books that you have turned to personally that have helped you as you're navigating this season, broaden your approach to find something meaningful, to find sort of a new way to look at the birth of Christ. That sort of sometimes loses that little bit of zhuzh when you do it over and over and over again. So if you have any guidance or any wisdom that you want to offer, or any books or writers that you have turned to, I would love your insight.
Yeah, that is a wonderful question, Jessie. So I would one is something I already mentioned today, and that is N.T. Wright. I really appreciate everything when he writes he's written like over 70 books, but he has this series called For Everyone. And so his gospel commentaries, Mark for everyone, Luke for everyone, and then his New Testament for everyone translation, just a very fresh translation. And I feel like when I want to rediscover the incarnation and the birth of Jesus anew, it helps to just go to a different translation and just see what words sparkle up at you as you read that translation, and you kind of go, like, why is that a different choice of words, and what does it mean? What might it say to me? I mean, I find that to be a very helpful experience. So I would recommend, whether it's N.T. Wright's translation or other translations, just try a different one and, see if that says something new to you. I would also say this is a wonderful time. Seasons like Advent or Lent are a wonderful time to read in community. And so, we did some Advent devotional reading. There was a really beautiful one. Oh gosh, I think it's called Calling All Angels. Mm-hmm. But that's the devotional that I have been kind of coming back to this season. And I really appreciate that. But again, as a working pastor, sometimes I am not great about joining a small group like I used to before I was a pastor, but in my previous church, I ran a weekly women's Bible study. And this time of year, taking a devotional like that to a small group and hearing the way different people experience the story can be really, really powerful. And so I would suggest that. And if that's not something that people can do right now, it can be, Jesse, for you, I would say, what a gift you have to experience the story alongside your children. That when my kids were young, oh my gosh, that was one of the most beautiful things, was to experience the story alongside them. And now I get to experience it alongside high schoolers. Mm-hmm. So, it can be finding some of those just right resources, or it can be taking a familiar resource like the Bible, into, as I'm going to do with youth group in a couple of weeks, just taking it into the youth group with me and giving half of the room Luke and half of the room Matthew, and saying, let's read these different stories, and then let's put them in conversation with each other and say, what do we take away about what it meant that Jesus was born in the way that he was? And that can be very, very rich and very meaningful.
That's awesome. Thank you, Amy. Before we go, I want to just make sure everybody knows that we do regular book giveaways, and this November's giveaway that we will also carry through December is from a book by Will Gaffney, Reverend Will Gaffney, which is a women's lectionary for the whole church, which takes you through year C of the lectionary and sort of hones in on sort of a liberation and womanist theology and the women's stories of the Bible. So I will put that giveaway link in the comments. Please be sure you sign up for our page turners. Be sure you sign up for our newsletter. You can email info@presoutlook.com to do all of that. And make sure you are still reading and paying attention to our book reviews. Amy does an excellent, excellent job of putting these book reviews together and making them available for you. And everything is generative. Everything is substantial. Everything is life-giving. So Amy, thank you for your time and for meeting with me again. And I hope to do this with you again when we.
I'll look forward to it. Lizzie, thank you. Have a blessed Advent and a Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.